Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the IHA's presentation of Top Trends 2016. We are pleased to introduce Tom Mirabile, Consumer Trend Analyst for the International Housewares Association. For the last 2 decades, Tom has held senior merchant and product development positions with corporations including Neiman Marcus Group, Horchow, and Bloomingdale's. He has co-designed home and housewares collections for such icons as Vera Wang, Kenneth Cole, and Calvin Klein. In his current role as Senior Vice President of Global Trend and Design for Lifetime Brands, he provides creative direction for some of the most well-respected brands in the housewares and tabletop industries. His emphasis on consumer-centric product development and design has guided the evolution of such brands as Mikasa, Falsgraf, KitchenAid, Cuisinart, Farberware, Towel, and Wallace Silver. Tom travels globally to gather information on color, style, and lifestyle trends for Lifetime brands, the IHA, and their retail partners nationwide. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Mirabile.
Hi. Thank you all so much for coming. I really appreciate your getting out here and up so early. Shut that fucking thing off. I swore I wouldn't curse. I had to get it over with at least, for those of you who know me. So just a show of hands, how many of you have been here before at this time of day? Oh, cool. Got a lot of return people. That's excellent. So I usually start off by telling a story to sort of just put myself at ease and, usually it's a funny story about my family or myself, and this year's going to be no exception. So, but it's kind of a visual, so actually, Kurt, I'm going to ask you to just start it up. So, one of the things that I had a friend that had been asking me to come visit him for a long time, and his family, and so Bill and I went to visit them. They live in the Alps, and it's a beautiful little place. I'm not always the best with language, so I didn't really study very hard in high school. So I took a bathroom break, and afterwards, I grabbed what was on the back of the toilet, and this was the only can there, so I naturally thought, okay, it's an air freshener. Well, actually, it was shaving cream, and I literally covered the bathroom in it. It's one of those moments when you're telling your finger, stop pushing the button, but it's instinctive. You just keep going like this. So, but a lot of times, and there is some relevance here. The relevance being that a lot of times we think that we understand the message that we're getting. I mean, the visuals are all there. We know that a can of air freshener looks like this, but sometimes either the packaging's not right or the message that we're getting is not what the customer's meaning to receive, or we're sending them messages that we don't mean to send them. So one of the things that I thought would be interesting to sort of start things off a little bit is to, why don't you all put on your 3D glasses that you hopefully got on your way in. Because I thought this would be a nice way to sort of start off by, this is great to see from out here. Hold on a second, I gotta take a picture of this. You guys are too funny. Look, it's a selfie just like at the Oscars. So one of the things that we try to do, and this sort of illustrates it, is we really try to dimensionalize in these reports the consumer, and to try to give ourselves a better, more 3D, if you will, view of what the consumer lifestyle is. A lot of times we have pictures in our heads of what the consumer's saying to us, what they want from us, and it's always very flat, and it's never been more important for us to view consumers in 3 dimensions. They do not just come to us for functional products, they come to us to help us live the lives that they want to live. And the people who are succeeding on our side are going to be delivering products that really deliver a true dimensional experience. Look how scary millennials are in 3D. Okay, we're going back to 1D now. So what we did was we titled this presentation, The New Rules of Engagement, and came up with 10 rules that we think are going to be most important to engaging consumers and really being meaningful to them. And I'm going to just list those out here. The first is know your audience, create desire, inspire the makers, get personal, get healthy, sell experiences, stay on trend, get social, and live in the future. And then finally, embrace change, which is probably the hardest of all of them. So, rule number 1, know your audience. We always like to say, okay, who is the Housewares consumer? You know, who was buying then and how are they buying now? So when we look just in the even recent 10 years, really the people who were buying housewares were ages 36 to 54-year-olds really drove most of purchases. They were very independent generations. There was not a lot of crossover. We saw generations as each one functioned very individually with very individual sort of aspirations and behaviors. They had a traditional life progression in terms of career, family, all of this, and we sold to a market of many, and they acted like a market of many. Everybody wanted this item or that item, very aspirational. But the people who are buying now, we have sort of a skinny middle. The young and the older consumers are really dominating the economy right now. Generations are interdependent, so they're learning a lot from each other, teaching a lot to each other. And kids are influential consumers as opposed to really being at-the-side participants who many times were not even allowed to participate in the kitchen for safety reasons, among other things. Flexible lifestyles, and also we're now really dealing with a market of one. We want to be individuals, and consumers want to be treated like individuals. So this is the first time we've ever reported on Gen Z, and we're only going to do a couple of slides because they're not of course, spenders yet. They do influence, though, and we wanted to address that. But generally, they're very active participants in this environment. It's the first time that this environment has been so interactive in the kitchen. They're also very much consider themselves foodies. 50% of kids who learn to cook now will cook up to 5 meals a day as an adult. So it's important when you compare that to the way children have been treated in the past. Also, we have to look at them as the next adult generation and understand that they are very culturally diverse. 80% of them say that cooking skills are something that either they have or they want. They're very entrepreneurial. I don't know if you saw Addison Osta-Smith here at the show. She's actually she's performing here, if you will, or cooking, but she's really quite engaging for a 10-year-old. You know, very socially aware. That's another thing, and you know, literally from beginning to end of meal preparation. So those are all things to keep in mind. So of course we'll start off with Gen Y or millennials, and we always like to give sort of a frame-up of who these people are. Right now we call them an inspiration powerhouse, but when we look at the numbers for them, they're 27% of the population, 29% of American households, 20% of income, 34% of consumer spending, and about 24% of consumer debt. The two things that sort of stand out here is the low income rate and the high debt rate. They're very debt burdened, and they're starting to enter their family years. You know, it's interesting. We tend to think of millennials as perpetual sort of early 20-somethings, but it's important to realize that the earliest of Gen Y is turning 40 next year. So we're really entering a whole new phase with them, and it's important to think of them as adults with the careers and the aspirations that every adult has, and the responsibilities that families also bring. They have less money, but they're finding new ways to acquire money. Many of them have smaller but multiple incomes. They're very proactive on health, and they're very proactive on saving money. So this is also something that we need to keep in mind. They expect personalization and customization, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later on, but it's just important to understand that these consumers are buying products that they have either customization built in or they have the ability to create custom product as they make it. And they're really reforming our definitions of style, service, and transparency, and also social interaction. They are also an economic powerhouse. They will be 92 million by 2020. That is 12 million larger than boomers ever got in terms of a head count. So they will be very, very influential, and we can expect them to exert the pressure that they have already, but now with a great deal more money as time goes by, because they're going to be inheriting from both boomers and Gen X. They listen visually. We find that Gen Y say that they would much rather communicate with pictures rather than with words. So that makes the next. It's like looking at yourself when you go to take a picture of something. Gen Y. Quality, story, and transparency matter. And this is just a sort of an example of what I mean. When you look at Gen Y consumed 42% of all the wine that was consumed in the United States last year. And 17% of them spent over $20 a bottle, as opposed to only 5% of baby boomers, who are much more financially able. So it tells you that if there's a good story, then there is more purchasing intent and more interest in those types of categories. We also like to look at what are attitudes about food and cooking by generation. So if you look on the left, the question was, this is from the Futures Foundation, the question was, when I think about my life, food and cooking is a big part of who I am. 66% of Gen Y said that that was true for them. 54% of boomers. And then you look to the other side. Learning to cook new dishes or cuisines is a personal accomplishment that is important to me. 73% of Gen Y and 53% of boomers. So the average boomer, by the way, has about 8 recipes on average that they just keep hauling out again and again and again. I'm one of them. But it's important to understand that our role as providers now turns to one of educator. The people who can educate consumers best, whether through social media, through apps, or through something that's just built into the box, are going to be the ones who win through all this. Now we go to Gen X. Oh, and the reason why we called, well, we'll get to why we call Gen Y an inspirational powerhouse, because in addition to controlling a tremendous amount of money, they have a tremendous amount of influence on the way other generations spend their money. Gen X, ages 40 through 49. So let's look at the numbers. 13% of the population, 18% of American households, 21% of income, 20% of spending, and 31% of debt. Again, here we see debt climbing. Here, there's a good solid reason for it, though. This generation has the largest number of children living at home. They are very engaged in spending time with their children. So because of their limited network, they're very much about saving time, saving space, and saving money, those 3 focal things that we keep coming to every year. Products can do that. They look for products that do that. This generation, surprisingly, has greater acuity in finding deals online and on apps than either Gen Y or Gen Y millennials or boomers. So they're the first generation to really, truly bring casual living into the kitchen and casual living style in general into the home. And they're also using a lot more outdoor space. This generation has a lot of commentary on trying to dine more outdoors when they can and building on spaces to their homes where possible. They're changing the norms in traditions, not only of when you eat, but where you eat. So this is the first generation to really embrace eating in the kitchen, having breakfast for dinner, sort of flipping things on their end and not handling meals in the most traditional fashion. They're also entering what we call their peak needs years and their peak earning years. We know that earning power really peaks between 45 and 54. That's a sweet spot. After 54, earning power starts to diminish in the US. And so we have to look at, this is the period where they need services most, where they're looking at durability because they know these things have to last, but they're also really hitting peak earning years right now. Now we go to boomers, ages 50 to 70, and we can truly say that they dominate wealth in the United States. They're 25% of the population, 35% of American households, 38% of income, 36% of spending, and 41% of debt. That said, we're starting to see spending start to decline. They were at 42% of consumer spending just 2 years ago. So they are getting very, very good at, well, technology is helping them really gain a lot of acuity when it comes to searching online and just any online activities. They have 3 times the net worth of younger generations, and they're really getting very good at adopting and adapting to new technologies because technologies are smartly being developed for them. 40% of the nation's homes are occupied by boomers, which gives them more than half, all told, the nation's wealth. So we can see why that's important. And also just the home as a space. This is another reason why they're a terrific place to, to work with and to sell into. They are giving financial aid to multiple generations, particularly millennials. And the current statistics from Pew are that 21% of boomers support, either wholly or in part, their millennial kids. So we also like to look at, well, what's happening with housing purchases. We can see, looking at Gen X 34 and under, has 32% of U.S. home purchases in 2015. Gen X, 27%, and boomers just slightly under at 31%. Still, while millennials are now climbing up and occupying that largest home purchase number, boomers still do more remodeling every year than every other generation. And not surprisingly, the National Builders Association reported that those builds were primarily in kitchen spaces, and kitchens and baths. About 80% of it was in kitchens, and the objective in most cases was to build out and to make the space more open. Reverse mentoring, it's a concept we talked about before, and I just want to bring it up because it is affecting a tremendous amount of U.S. spending. The idea of reverse mentoring is when older generations, boomers in particular, look to younger ones for advice or influence, everything from the way they shop to what they buy, to the styles of what they buy. So we need to make sure that the messages are being sent through the proper channels and that we are engaging both the boomers and those who influence them. Can you imagine asking your kid about online dating? So strange. Do you think he really looks like that? And then we get to matures. Now matures, and that is people 71 and over, are entering a very exciting life stage because they're very vibrant, they're much healthier than they had planned to be, or we had thought they would be. And it's estimated that 60 or 65% of children born today will live to be over 100, which is really pretty amazing. But 10% of the population, 18% of households, 7% of income, 9% of consumer spending, and 4% of consumer debt. So they have a really nice low debt ratio. The downside for us in Housewares is they only spend about 4% of their spending is done in Housewares categories. That said, they're important to watch for a specific reason, and that is that boomers, a lot of them are living with their boomer kids, and or living very close to their boomer kids, and their boomer kids are making spending decisions for them in terms of what types of items to have in the house and things like that. So things that, objects that promote better efficiency, safer use, boomer kids are going to buy for their parents to keep them independent as they want to be. An estimated 4.2 million retirees moved into new homes last year, and nearly 3/4 of adults aged 65 to 74 reported being in good health. Over 60s in the U.S. are estimated to have another 19 years of good health ahead of them, which is a wonderful thing. And we have to keep considering them part of the household because they're very active parts of the household. So in sum, knowing your audience, just understand that consumers want to live in smaller homes, but they want those smaller homes to live larger. We are seeing housing sizes shrink slightly. Kitchens and bathrooms are really the protected areas. We're not going to see a lot of change about that. And also, we talk about counter-worthy product. As we see more product developed for the home and for these open spaces, it becomes more and more important that the product is designed to be seen. So it's important to understand that. So now we get to new rule number 2, create desire. When we talk about creating desire, it's not just desire to purchase, but it's understanding the desires that people have right now. So what did we as consumers desired in housewares of late? The older consumer, the old view, was segregated spaces, kitchen, dining room, living room, very practical kitchens, function-oriented kitchens, more traditional households. The necessities of the kitchen were very functional. A blender did blended, and that was it. Indulgences like Williams-Sonoma or Sur La Table, those were aspirational, and they were really for the few, and much of it was a world of sameness. There weren't a lot of food processors. There was Cuisinart, you know, so what we desire now is we want open floor plan spaces. We want expressive kitchens, much more than we want just practical kitchens. So we want more non-traditional households, meaning that the walls are broken down between rooms. And also, we want necessities that don't just function on a single level, but inspire us to do different things. Indulgences are for the many. You know, when you look at the price points achieved by Williams-Sonoma lately, by Sur La Table, by the top of the market, they're hitting price points that almost any consumer can really relate to. And we want to live in a world of originality where retailers see us as individuals. Desire is also about indulgence. So for the first time in a very long time, we're seeing a climb in indulgent type products like ice creams. 4.8% increase, just 1% increase for non-premium ice creams. So the prevailing thought on indulgence is that since we watch our bodies more carefully and we take better care of ourselves, that we feel the desire to indulge in certain things, and particularly in food. And also, because indulgence creates experience, it gives us something to talk about. We also desire new skills. So the meal kit segment, and for those of you, I don't know if any of you have tried Blue Apron or Plated or any of the other few that are out there, but it's an amazing experience. The meal kit segment is scheduled to grow between 3 and 5 billion over the next 10 years. And these are basically meals in a box. They're wonderful from a couple of perspectives. Of course, there is a premium to be paid, but you learn new skills, and you can, you know, it is a very sort of, it's a do-it-for-me type of thing. You don't have to worry about the shopping. You don't have to worry about anything but preparing it. And in the process of preparing it, you are learning how to do things. You know, but there are a lot of different platforms that grocery channel in particular is addressing consumers on. You know, and we listed them at the right: make it for me, prepare it for me, sometimes order it for me. When we talk about smart appliances, imagine that within the next few years, your refrigerator will be able to sort of restock itself. It will know what you take and what you leave and what you give, and given with your permission, it will probably order replenishments from Amazon or from, you know, Fresh Direct or whoever you want it to. We also desire new skills. Houseware sales in general are up. Nielsen reported that close to 90% of households shop and buy food in the prep category on a regular basis. So this is just something to realize for those of you who are, you know, I don't know if any of you got to see the presentation yesterday. It was really great about, you know, basically giving the food, in the food channel, giving housewares an opportunity to shine and making it easier for consumers to buy there. But it's a prime opportunity, but also for many of us, it's a competitive issue, because those of us who have small stores, for example, you're now dealing with not just, you know, large stores, but you're also dealing with grocery channel, who's getting better and better at creating really inviting and experiential retail. We also desire originality. A quarter of Gen Y says that the most important part of cooking or creating is adding a personal touch, something that nobody else can do. So that's why when we see these gin kits or Zoku, which is another amazing company, there were, at least at this show, I saw 3 new butter makers. You know, so the idea of being able to personalize something that you create so that you're not just making gin, but you're making gin plus is very important, and those personalization options are important. So when we look at create desire, leading consumer desires: more space, clutter control, less prep time, healthy cooking, professional results at home, because so much of what comes into Housewares comes off of professional and restaurant experience. More family time, new ways to entertain, sustainable living, and creativity with amateur skills, meaning can I do something, again, Plated is a great example if you haven't seen their site, but they take you through creating some truly gourmet meals, but it's in a box, super, super easy, everything's supplied. So, but regardless of what your category is, this is just it's a sit down and brainstorm list to get together with your team and say, how are we addressing these things? Do we have any of these? And by the way, you'll all be getting this. You can have it digitally. You just have to drop off your card, and it'll be on actually the IHA website. So, Rule 3: inspire the makers. Makers are an incredibly vibrant, important part of the housewares industry right now, and they're great contributors. Making was make simple things and buy artisanal things. It was about buying things if it was fresh. Cookbooks were the inspiration. A lot about traditional entertaining, and also a very economically driven at the outset. Making has evolved into something very different. So now we make artisanal. We can make cheeses. We can make butters. We can make any number of infused products. We grow it fresh. Restaurants are inspiration, no longer cookbooks. Creative entertaining, as opposed to just a standard type of entertaining. We may have you see lots of different ideas on websites and blogs for different types of parties, a cheese party, a fondue party. So giving people ideas like that. And they're also much more creatively driven than economically driven. So it's important to give this group of people things that are of interest. So what do makers love? Makers love foodie culture. We saw sales at food service and drinking places up nearly 8% last year. Food accounts for 7% of all discussions on Pinterest. So it's important to understand, and it's a great place to go and sort of see what's hot, what's now, what's next, what people are talking about. They also love food trends. So it's important, again, to just keep an eye on what's out there, what's trending, and what are the longer-term things that we can speak to. We know that makers love to entertain and show off what they made, and they also like to gift what they made. So what are we providing for them to gift the products that they make and to present and serve? Also, makers love simplicity. I don't know if any of you have seen online, there's a lot of different things coming up about sheet pan dinners. Food Network spoke about them at the end of last year, but it's basically just, it's sort of like a one-pot meal, only it's roasted on a large pan. There are tremendous recipes online. It's really great to see, and it was actually one of Food Network's top trends. So, but simplicity is always the key. So if you look at the things that have really gained traction, like things that may have seemed complicated, like cake pops, what really gains traction are the things that we can keep simple and that have simple instructions. So knowing food trends, again, is very important, but more important than that is giving people easy tools, preferably new tools, to create these things. Also, for the maker, skills equal status. If you make anything, what you really want is to believe that that's your status symbol, is to be able to make something better than anybody that you know. Makers look for for experience as well. They look to experience in creation, they look to experience in learning new things, and they look to experience in sharing in ways of entertaining. So when you're dealing with the maker, these are the real points of interaction. Rule 4, get personal. So personal is about seeing the kitchen space in a completely different way. It's seeing the kitchen as we used to see it as a prep and eating space. It was a place that was used, but it was definitely not a social space that we shared. We shared it with our family. It was very sort of cookie cutter layouts and formats. The product was not made to be adaptable. It was made to be singular of function. And the brands sell product that had a focus on function. Now we're moving to the expressive kitchen. The kitchen is a family living space that is the social heart of the home. The design of it reflects our individual style and our personality. And also, it's the product that fits me, not the product that, and me can be a different person in every part of the day. So, when we look at Nespresso machines or other coffee makers, the idea that they are different for every person who walks up to them, it's a different experience. Getting personal also means gifting. We have never had the opportunity in Housewares for the type of growth in gifting that we do today. Virtually every major retailer who is in the Housewares business, and quite a few that were not in the Housewares business, Q4 last year started tipping into Housewares in one manner or another, because they know it's an important category. So just make sure that we are gifting, because practical gifting and also expressive gifting is really on trend in Housewares. You can also see a lot of it in magazines, Q3 and Q4, best gifts to give. There was a few weeks ago in the New York Times, they had best gifts for Valentine's under $100, and 6 of them were Housewares. So it was, it's all very, there is a giftable story for absolutely any occasion in Housewares, and it's a year-round giftability. So it's important. It gives us a great way to keep changing our story at retail. Making it personal means being relevant to me. So we know that consumers are looking to brands and retailers for more education. It's about knowing who your customer is, sharing their personal style, showing them that you understand their passions, and providing them with ideas. The one thing that we search the internet for constantly, all of us do, is ideas of how to entertain. What product do we want to make? So being a resource that speaks very directly to the customer you know you have, and if you don't know who they are, it's time to start figuring that out. Rule number 5 is get healthy. So what did healthy mean? Healthy used to mean something you had to do, absolutely zero indulgence. The focus was very much on physical health, and it was idealized health for the few, meaning that it was the perfect body, it was about musculature and physicality, and people in the middle who couldn't achieve that were kind of just set to the side. And it was very scientific and tech-oriented. Now healthy is something that we want to do. It's not about zero indulgence. It's about balanced indulgence and earning the indulgence that we grant ourselves. It's got to focus on the physical and the emotional, and a realistic health for all. I think, I don't know if you were all listening, Christy Brinkley was asked last week about what she thought, just off the cuff, about what she thought about the new swimsuit model for Sports Illustrated being a plus-size model on the cover, and she said that she thought it was really bad, and it was sending people a bad message, which I thought was hysterically ironic, but it's sending people a bad message about what's healthy. And health now, and of course she immediately got the total verbal smackdown that she deserved, but I think that when we look at health now, it's about the best you can do. We trust you to do the best that you can do for your body, and the best you can do is certainly good enough. So, and that attitude is just much more prevalent right now. Wellness, people have been treating wellness sort of as a fad. It can absolutely no longer be treated as a fad, especially as encompassing and enveloping as it is to all people now. So, also, if you look at our own market, health and wellness has been, really sort of delivering the lion's share of innovation for the last 2 years or so. So important to keep that in mind. It's also got a solid growth trajectory. I want to talk a little bit about the word fresh. Fresh is the single most important buzzword that you can use right now. Fresh is important because it is intuitively tells the consumer certain things. It is the assumptions or the presumptions made are that you're dealing with something at its peak of nutritional value, that it has no additives, that it's fresh, it's ideal. So keep that word in mind. You're seeing it a lot already. It's incredibly important. It hits a lot of buttons for consumers, and it's a very good word to keep with. Healthy is also homemade. One thing that is inarguable is that the American consumer believes that making something at home is generally healthier than buying it prepared, or than eating at a restaurant, or than eating fast food. We put up here a Columbia University study found that children who eat at home at least 5 times a week do better in school. They have less problems with substance abuse than children who do less so. So anything we can do to enable that, again, this is something about time and space and ease, but we aspire to making things at home when we can because we know it's more healthful. Also, pardon me, healthy is mindful living. We're seeing a lot of, and I would encourage you to research it a bit because there's a lot of tremendous books coming out about it. Mindful living is a very holistic approach to, well, living. But one of the big things behind it is devoting time. It's savoring. It's spending time to appreciate what is actually, what you're tasting, what you're making. It's embracing the process as well as the consumption and taking every step and saying, are we devoting the amount of time to it that we should? For ourselves, for our families, are we sitting down and taking a minute to savor? So it's a very important movement, and it runs a counter trend actually to American consumers spend about 21 minutes a day preparing dinner and about 8 minutes preparing breakfast. And in I believe it was a Pew survey, but I can't remember. I'll find it for you. The average American household wanted to save 8 minutes on prep time in the kitchen. So understandable, but it runs counter to this. So if we can save them more time in preparing and we can deliver more time in them just enjoying the experience, then that will be better. So now we also say the healthy is the wellness home. And that's where we start stepping away from food and saying, look at all the categories that have grown and been enabled by this attitude towards wellness. There is not a category that we can look at that we shouldn't be able to associate somehow with wellness. So how to help your consumers get healthy? Provide nutrition education and retention. Address both physical and emotional well-being. Show how living a sustainable lifestyle is living a healthier lifestyle, because I think people usually associate sustainability with just the environment. Give them more tools for food preservation. Food preservation is one of the most important categories right now because food is more expensive and because freshness is the ideal. So time saving is also the big disconnect for the consumer between preparing healthy meals at home and not is time. That's invariably the largest resistance. And devices for food and allergy safety. We're seeing more and more devices that will perceive or you'll be able to scan for different types of allergens and bacteria. So, Rule 6, sell experiences. The idea behind sell experiences is that we really don't need one more peeler. So if we're not selling a peeler, what are we selling? The idea is that we're selling the experience that is delivered by that. So we used to buy things that were made just of superior materials, is what we looked for, products that deliver a single consistent result. For a group with a singular objective or interest, We used to buy for holiday celebrations, and we used to buy for task-oriented, we used to shop at task-oriented retail. But now we shop for superior function as well as superior materials. We want multifunction. We want products that deliver multiple options, multiple results. And again, I go to coffee makers as a great example, or stand mixers and all the new things that they're doing now. Items that deliver customizable results to an audience of individuals so that every individual in the household can go to that same product and get what they want out of it. And also, we want experiences not just for holidays, but we want everyday experiences as well. The thrill of the new. So again, what are we looking for? We're looking for professional results. We're looking for better nutrition, a healthier home, less space as items multitask, items that just deliver fun with family and friends. A great example is s'mores, a s'mores maker. It's not something you need, but you buy it because you know the experience it's going to deliver as soon as you look at it. 78% of Gen Y respondents said they'd rather spend money on an experience than on a thing. That is an incredibly high number. And it means that your packaging has to deliver the promise, either visually or otherwise, of an experience, not just of one more thing that's going to fill up the kitchen, especially since for most generations now, space is a challenge. This is a trend that we think is very important. This idea of meal in a bowl. The bowl sales, single bowl sales, are up incredibly over a 5-year period. But more importantly, we're seeing a lot of restaurants serving entrees in bowls. We're seeing people buying, even fast foods, burrito bowls, sushi bowls. It's important to keep an eye on this because it will evolve into something very important. Okay, so now I want you all to bring out your yes or no cards because we're going to sort of test your. Okay, so what are consumers searching for? Yes or no? New trends in baking as it moves to savory rather than sweet flavors. Yeah, well, you're pretty much all right. Ideas for making the living room more of an entertaining space. Okay, that was kind of a trick question. I had to fuck with you a little bit. But it's actually it's not the living room. Most people are veering away from the living room and letting the living room evolve as a gaming space, not so much of a social space. The real objective is to make the kitchen more of an entertaining space. No more trick questions, I promise. Entertaining my way from prep to oven to table. Absolutely. Every single one of you. Neutral color palettes that make functional products disappear in the kitchen. I thought I was going to get you with that one. No, you're right. It's absolutely not. People want color. They want expressive style. They want things that really sort of stand out and describe their personalities. How to bring restaurant trends into the home with new products. All right, yes, everybody, outstanding. Easy ways to stay healthy, body, mind, and soul. That's a gimme, yes, absolutely, perfect. And lastly, diet variations of all-time favorites. Oh, it's about half and half. No, actually. We don't want diet variations of anything. In fact, if we look at the way all-time favorites are evolving, lobster mac and cheese, double-sized cupcakes, frosting shots, really? So, they're amazing, by the way. Who needs cake? But really, we're evolving into or rather, we're looking for evolutions of all-time favorites and not so much any diet versions of them. Okay, rule number 7, sorry. Stay on trend. So there are so many trends out there. There's so many things to keep an eye on. And sometimes it seems absolutely annoying. But keep in mind that these trends being in our business and not just in fashion, have given us the opportunity to react, to engage with consumers again and again, sometimes with the same product, but treated in a different way. So we really have to keep a close eye on them. Trend used to be about Color, brand expression, fashion, brand loyalty, aesthetic beauty, wanting to fit in with the Joneses or one-up the Joneses, if you will. But trend now is about not just color, but form, pattern, material mixtures, personal expression rather than expressing a brand. We use brands to express ourselves. We are brand blenders. Fashion and function. Brand loyalty has turned into brand blending. We demand that every brand does the best job of every product, or we buy that specific function from another brand. Functional beauty and definitely standing out versus fitting in. Oops, sorry. Color, color, color. Color is still incredibly important, especially when it comes to adapting products that the consumer may be used to. It gives them a reason to buy something that maybe it's time to replace, or maybe they wouldn't necessarily buy again. Color is an incredibly important driver at retail. 93% of people who buy say that they look at the visual appearance of an object. So, another trend, grilling is really taking a leap. It's doing really, really well. One of the big reasons is because small electrics have developed a lot of new products for grilling indoors. A lot of new ranges have grilling options. And people are just also broiling, reverse grilling. But the positive health attributes of grilling are making it an indoor, outdoor, year-round thing. It's important to also note that treating grilling just like barbecue is a mistake, because barbecue is a sort of summer type of holiday type of thing, or an outdoor activity. Grilling is an entirely separate, year-round, health-driven attribute. Being on view, we talked before about the changes in the way kitchens are looking, the changes in the shapes of them, and this just sort of points it out very nicely. It's from House, which is another great site, by the way, to follow. But we're seeing more and more islands, obviously, are up in terms of new construction in kitchens, but also people putting in display cabinets and separate shelving in their kitchens to display objects that are not just kitchen related, but really more lifestyle related. We also just as a sort of wrap up to trend, we say be brave because it's easy to drive innovation with technology and organizational work, but ultimately the best innovations come from a really deep understanding of who the consumer is and what problems they have that you can solve. So everything that we do has to be problem-solving centric, really. Okay, time to bring out your cards again. So, on trend, yes or no? Home distilling. Yeah, good. Insects as snacks. Okay, if you're in Thailand, yes. No, really. No, I mean, there is something in really high-end, foodie magazines like Edible. I won't be talking to any of you people or kissing you very soon. So, bread making. Absolutely. Home bread making is up. A lot of new tools for it, a lot of new gadgets for it. It's presenting. In general, savory flavors are up in home, something you can really keep in mind. So breads, crackers, flatbreads, pizzas, all of these things. We're seeing a lot more cookbooks for them. We're seeing them a lot more on restaurant menus. It's opening up a new vista for baking, which has been really focused on sweet baking until lately. Home butchery. Catherine, you raised that so high, I would think you killed a cow this morning. Yes, it is, absolutely. Local sourcing. Didn't take many people that, absolutely. New age synthetic sweeteners. Nope. Homemade snacks. Yes. And you've all got it dead on. Homemade snacking, the average American snacks 5 times a day. It is an incredibly large amount of product that we buy to take with us and snack. So the movement is to try to take snacking back from snacking companies, basically. Ancient grains. Absolutely yes, but they still don't taste good. Pasta. About half and half. No, it's not. Actually, pasta sales were down 6% last year. So again, we're watching carbs, and if we, they're still somewhat the enemy. So, indoor grilling. That's no fair. I just told you. Donald Trump. Come on, get him up there. I'm afraid so. Okay, so rule number 8, get social. So what does social mean? Okay, we used to really embrace product performance. We used to trust the brand. We used to need to fit in, like we said before, and we used to want more product data and use product to show off our status. Now we embrace product experience much more than singular performance. You never see people bragging online about how their KitchenAid stand mixer made this amazing cake. It's just a tool. It's just a tool to that experience. We trust our peers. Better than 90% of millennials trust other consumers before they trust what a brand or a store says about itself. We really feel the need to stand out. And now, we don't just want product data, we want a backstory, we want heritage, we want information. We want people and a story attached to it that we can relate to. And now, we want to show off our skills and our experience and not just how much money we spent on something. These are just some numbers, just kind of mind-boggling how important social media is. So every 60 seconds, 41,000 photos on Instagram, 120 hours of video on YouTube, 50 billion text messages, a lot of different points of engagement. I think that we all tend, I know I do, tend to think of social media and social networks as the domain of younger generations. But take a look here at some of the numbers here. 25 to 34-year-olds, yes, 35.3 million in 2015, 29.7 million in 35 to 44, but 45 to 54 is at 26.4, and 65 and over is only at 14.6, but they're expected to see the single largest demographic growth in social users between this year and next year. So it's important to everybody, and it's going to be important to everybody. I also just wanted to include this graphic because it gives you an idea of what each of the major social networks sort of puts out, what they're known for, what you can look for on there, because I think it's always great to have a sort of cheat sheet of, okay, if Pinterest is great for product photos and guidebooks and videos, versus, LinkedIn, which is where you're going to find your next job, So, but we also have to understand that a new channel means new habits. So finally, we can almost get comfortable with the fact that salespeople on the ground are not really specialists, and that's been a real loss to retail for a long time. But in a lot of cases, we're seeing that shoppers prefer self-help, and that's an evolution that's not going to stop. The ability to find the information ourselves, whether it's consumer reviews or to find it online rather than having to ask someone who you're not really certain may know what they're talking about, is always going to be preferable. Plus, they're doing a lot of the shopping at home as well. The other new habit is just, this. I thought it was really interesting. There was an article about how Chili tweaks its food to look better on Instagram. And the response that it was getting were pretty amazing. But again, this idea of 40% of millennials said that they would rather communicate with pictures than with words. Sharing. This girl's so cute. So, single mom, the average Gen Y mom spends 2.8 hours a day on her smartphone or her tablet. 82% more likely to favor online peer endorsements, and 35% more likely to like or recommend products to her friends as well. So it's just important to understand where a lot of this influence lay and where it's coming from. And then also, just the importance of integrating brick and mortar. When we look at, I don't know how well you can see this chart here, but it's US internet users who also use mobile apps in store. When we look at 18 to 24-year-olds, you're at 68% use apps for that store while in store. So the integration of brick and mortar to our selling process is essential. It has to happen. We also look at sharing content. One of the great ways that we can communicate with other people, regardless of how large or small you are, is by providing people with content to share, by giving them experiences. You know, it may be a class that you're giving that people are taking, or just tremendous sale or ideas that you're giving them for entertaining. So workshops are a great way to do that. When we look at selling social, Outbrain put out this list, and I just thought there was no way to really improve upon it. Their idea was that whether you're large or small, you have to have a strategy, and that's based on a few very important points. What are the brands, that's you, overarching content themes? For example, Red Bull's Give You Wings. What are the target personas? Who are you talking to, and what are they interested in? What's the value exchange? In other words, how do you add value to the target audience's life or to their business? And what are you trying exactly to achieve? What's the right content mix for you? Whether it's own content, or whether you use a paid content, you partner with somebody, or whether you use earned content, which is reviews that you earn over time. And what's the definition of success? How will you know when you've reached your goal? I think it's really, well, I'll hit that at the end. Rule number 9 is live in the future. I think that we, in the past, have looked at innovation as being something that trickled down, but now innovation gushes out. As soon as it exists, it's out very quickly, and products that deliver specific functions have given way to products that deliver multifunction. Technology used to mean complexity, and now it means simplicity. I always use the digital cameras as a great example, because you used to get a digital camera with this book that was an inch thick on how to use it, and now they come with nothing. So delivering objects versus delivering intangibles and delivering service. The future is about convenience. So it's about this Gourmania 10-in-1 robotic cooking device that can mix and stir everything from risotto to scrambled eggs. So it's about products that literally deliver time to you, deliver the intangible of time. And again, the future delivers intangibles. When we look at all of these businesses that have come up, they're delivering something that we can't buy anywhere, and that is time. And time is something that we are definitely willing to pay for. So we have to look at our products and ask how they are delivering those things. Again, here's other things that deliver time and safety, things that we don't want to do, like stir the pot or clean the grill or wash the windows or vacuum the carpet. Robotics are here. They're absolutely here to stay, but it doesn't have to be robotic. Anything you can do to deliver time to a consumer is going to be valued. The future is creative. So again, products that deliver creativity are always going to be of high value. And then rule 10, embrace change. My dad used to say when we were surfing, not surfing, but raft surfing in Florida, he said, when a wave comes at you, you have two choices. You can either ride it in or you can let it hit you. And it seemed, and he was really right, and that totally applies to what's happening with retail right now. Look, we all see trends coming towards us, and we all spend probably 20% more time than we should trying to bury our head in the sand and say, look, this is not happening, this is not happening. But understand that embracing change is crucial to success. When we look at survivors have seen the kitchen as a functional hub. They've stuck to brand loyalty religiously. They only sell to self-purchasers. They believe in the experience of consumption and depend on endless consumption, sometimes through poorer quality offerings, and they follow their leading competitors. But when you look at thrivers, thrivers see the kitchen as a social hub. They are brand blenders. They don't rely on a single brand. They are address not just self-purchasers, but gift purchasers as well. And they don't depend on the experience of consumption, but the insperience of creation that the consumer's about now. Right now, consumers are about creating insperiences, things that they have experienced outside, but they want to experience inside their home. They're about thoughtful consumption, and they don't follow leading companies. They follow innovative newcomers to see what these new people are thinking of. Some of the changes that have occurred, which are really a boon to us, are look at house surveys, how much time we spend in the kitchen. 45% of Americans spend 3 to 4 hours in the kitchen every day. Think of all the things we could be doing with them and ask yourself if your company's doing those. The majority of renovating homeowners said that they use their kitchen for cooking, baking, eating, entertaining, socializing, and they had some other things on there about taking vitamins and other strange things. So this idea of nearly 59% of 25 to 34-year-olds cook with either their smartphones or their tablets handy. So embrace mobile. It's not going anywhere, and there is a way to be a part of it regardless of what your size is. Digital interactions influence 64 cents of every dollar spent in retail sales. And then we also just look at the balance of omnichannel, how important and irrevocable this move towards omnichannel is, online versus brick and mortar, and how the main complaint of consumers is the disparity between online offerings and brick and mortar offerings. We know that small business has a real challenge with this, and we just wanted to list out from a host of resources what are the best ways to survive in this type of environment. One is personalized service, certainly. Creating experiences, specializing, and really speaking to a narrow customer. Social engagement, very, very important, especially Yelp, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, and those are at a local level. People can find you, they will find you and seek you out. Engaging where you can in Small Business Saturday and other types of their other organizations for that. So new rules reviewed, just to show you what these 10 are, and I think that's all we've got for you today. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming by. I was really gonna be proud here and say that I hadn't cursed once, but I did, so I can't. We have 3 prizes that we didn't get to tell you all about. So make sure you drop your card as you leave. We have a KitchenAid stand mixer. We have a KitchenAid tool and gadget set. We have a full Pantone paper color suite donated by Pantone. And so leave your card, and we'll give you a call and let you know you won. If anybody has any questions, just please feel free, and we'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it's a
we
pleasure.
have a channel